I'd like to call to order the regular Town Commission meeting of May 24th, 2022. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and afterwards remain standing for a moment of silence for the victims of the school shooting in Texas today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo. Let the record reflect that Commissioner Campo is not present. Commissioner Fender.
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Here.
Okay, our first item this afternoon is a proclamation, a Tala Butterfly Proclamation. Town Clerk, please read the proclamation into the record.
Whereas the town of Sewalls Point has made the following determinations. The natural beauty of Florida, Attala butterflies in the town of Sewalls Point can be enjoyed by everyone, can attract guests, and can enhance the beauty of the grounds. And whereas the Florida Attala butterfly was thought to be extinct from 1927 until 1959 and was rediscovered and is thriving at the town park and throughout the town. Whereas the Florida Attala butterfly host plant, aka Kunti, is the only Saya native to Florida and is the primary host plant for the Florida butterfly. And whereas it is featured in the landscape at the town park, and whereas the presence of native wildflowers is essential to the well-being of native pollinator species such as the Florida Attala butterfly, and necessary for productive and profitable farms and forests. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Sewalls Point does hereby commit and encourage others to commit to the conservation of the Florida Attala butterfly and its host range and implement practices that will protect these butterflies for the enjoyment of residents and visitors to the town of Sewalls Point in Martin County, Florida, May 24, 2022.
Thank you very much. And we have Jennifer Pelham, Associate District Director for University of Florida IFAS Extension, to accept the proclamation. Please say a few words.
Yes, thank you for having me today. I am Jennifer Pelham, and I am local in Martin County. If you didn't know, we do have a University of Florida IFAS Extension office here in Martin County over by the fairgrounds, so we're here to serve all of Martin County. And I appreciate your dedication to the conservation of the Attala butterfly. It's very important that we conserve these rare and special species that we thought was extinct at one time. And I also want to thank one of our master gardeners, who is also a resident here in Sewalls Point, Diane Kimes. She brought my attention to your conservation efforts of the Attala butterfly, and we appreciate her efforts and the other master gardeners who live in Sewalls Point for that conservation methods too. And you are the second location here in Martin County to be recognized as a conservation location for the Attala butterfly, the first being our extension gardens over at the fairgrounds. So we appreciate that, and hopefully others within Martin County and on the Treasure Coast can take your lead on this and also conserve the butterfly. So thank you very much for having me today.
Thank you.
I was interested in reading this because, believe it or not, this is the second proclamation on Attala butterflies I've been through. They had one in Fort Pierce.
Oh, yes.
At the Manatee Center, they have these plants that are also good for the butterflies. So
Yes, my colleague up in Port Pierce at the St. Lucie County Extension Office, he is leading charge on this, so
Very cool.
great, thank you.
thank you. Appreciate it.
Hold on, Jennifer. Proclamation.
Okay, that brings us to public comments, and we do have one public comment, happens to be on Resolution 936, but I think we can go ahead and take it now. John Nemi?
seek just a final discussion on this. I do appreciate, this is my third time up here about this. Try not to be redundant. Wanted to talk specifically about some of the evidence that had been presented here in the past 6 months or so by some experts that did come to see us. So I'll try not to be redundant with any other material other than to remind the commissioners. We had a visit from the South Florida Water Management District. Jessica Frost was the scientist expert who was talking about what was impacting, what were they doing to try and figure out what's impacting the seagrass. And I looked over her presentation and her slides, and first would like to say that didn't see anything regarding boat lift covers mentioned in her list of things. So did specifically talk a lot about water quality and what affects the light transmission through the water. They did point a lot to the septic tanks, water runoff, stormwater runoff being a big component, as well as the Placo discharges. In all the previous meetings, there was basically non-scientist citizens who were the only ones who mentioned boat lift covers. I did want to remind, and so we had Jessica Frost presenting that information. We later had Lori Simpson from the Florida Oceanographic Center, who's a real expert in this, doing a lot of work. And we've actually spoken with her, specifically asking her what her thoughts were on boat lift covers. She's basically said she's seen no research that shows any adverse effects of those on seagrass. Now, there may be limited data on that, but she had no evidence of that. And again, pointed to that water quality, septic tanks, stormwater runoff, those were all the big contributing factors to it. So just wanted to bring that information back into active memory when going forward, when you're reviewing doing the next reading of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the
I'll
agenda.
make a motion to move it.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes,
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
that brings us to the consent agenda. Does anybody have any questions or wish to pull any consent agenda items? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second?
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Sure.
And that brings us down to item 9, which is resolutions, and resolution number 936, dock roof fees. Would the town clerk please read the resolution?
A resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, amending the building permit fee schedule to add a special dock permit fee pursuant to ordinance number 442 and providing for conflicts, severability, and an effective date.
Okay, we've already had the one public comment on that. Is there any discussion among the commission? We've had a chance to beat this one up pretty well over the last several months, and we appreciate town manager and staff putting together the resolution. Any comments? If not, call for a motion.
Frank has a question.
I'm sorry. Oh. No,
So
the
just
buttons.
asking for a quick clarification from the town manager. Is this the only ordinance, or is this the first of two ordinances? And I'm really ultimately going to ask you, what was ever decided about the environmental impact fee?
This is the first of two ordinances. Yeah, we have another one, actually, it's in a rough draft form presently, looking for probably the next commission meeting to review the rough draft. And then the fee itself, the $1,000 fee, that's what you're asking about?
There has been some discussion about a seagrass mitigation environmental impact fee, I thought, in addition to regular permit fees.
Yeah, that's what this does. It's set at $1,000, and it's one of those situations where there's not an easy mathematical formula to say how much it should be, because there's just not a lot of data about replenishing seagrass. And so the intention is that the town would collect this fee, and then we would basically be a conduit to forward it on to Florida Oceanographic Society for use in
I
their
read this as
program.
a dock special permit fee, so I assume that was the permit fee.
That's what we're calling it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just the name, terminology.
So
Yes.
just so, I should have done more homework, I guess, but so are we allocating some portion or percentage of that $1,000 to some mitigation of some kind?
We'll be allocating all of it. Whatever we collect will be passed through. It won't be like bring something in and send it over. We'll collect it over a period of time, and then at the end of the period, then we'll
Okay.
transmit a
So
check
since
over
it is
to.
part of this first of two ordinances, what does that mean for the second ordinance?
Well, the second ordinance will address the question of what do we want to do with other docks in the future that may be wanting to build roofs to their,
So this ordinance only impacts.
It's a resolution.
It
I'm
only-
sorry, thank you. This resolution only impacts those.
that
those
already,
lots that are in the process that have been in this weird state.
the ones that do not have both an FDEP permit and a town permit, so.
All right. Okay.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes, I was just clarifying that this is the resolution to the ordinance that we already did the first and second reading, correct?
Correct.
So that one's all done, and then we're going to have the comprehensive review of the dock ordinance as it is. This was a whole special thing for the ones in existence, and so that's what was coming. So I was clarifying that. And then, this is all good to me, but I just wanted, this is really only going to be for these docks that are in existence. So this is a rather short, correct? Town manager? Yeah. Okay.
That's all it applies to
Yeah, and it's not
presently. I
going
mean,
to be able-
we still want to look at, what you do in the future.
Oh, yeah.
So,
But this,
okay.
yeah, and it won't apply to anything else except the situation, right?
Only the ones that are basically non-compliant presently
Right.
on the east side
For
of
the
town.
ordinance, which I believe had dates in
The
it,
4 to
maybe.
6 that fall into
Yeah,
that
okay, all
category.
right. That's all good to me.
I'm
I'd
also-
make a motion to approve. Oh,
I'm
sorry,
also assuming that whatever we come out with for the next round, if, we're talking about the east side, that we probably have a similar fee in there for that, for the same reasons. Commissioner Fender?
No, you answered my question.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second?
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Mayfield,
Yes.
Mayor Tomczak,
Yes?
Commissioner Fender.
No.
Okay, the next item is old business 10A, I'm sorry, comprehensive plan amendment, final adoption preview, and Mr. Hudson, you'll start out with a brief intro?
Yes. We're really coming to the end of a long road that the commission has been on. We received the objections, recommendations, and comments, which we refer to as that work report from the state, April 1st. And then the town planner, Bonnie Landry and Associates, have been working to integrate the comments that we received, and it really only having literally a handful of items to address. That's really quite remarkable. I think that speaks well for the town and the work that's gone into it, all of the planning and suggestions. So we're going to ask you to give a general review tonight. If there's any specific questions you'd like us to follow up on, we will do that in the next month, and then we'll schedule the second public hearing to finalize this program for June 28th. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Landry. And
Do you want me to advance the slides? You want me to get the mouse? Did you get it up?
yeah.
Welcome back, Bonnie. It seems
Well, thank
it's
you.
been such a long time.
It seems like a long time.
Okay.
That's kind of.
For the record, my name is Bonnie Landry with Bonnie C. Landry and Associates. I'm here with my associate, Heather Shaw, who's assisted me throughout this process. And we're just going to provide you an overview. What do I do? Just click it? Oh, there we go. Okay. So just to give you an overview, we're going to cover the accomplishments to date, the timeline, talk about public participation, give you a review. I've kind of mentioned what the adoption process is, but give you a review of that. summarize the report that was provided by the state, technical assistance from agencies, and other notable matters. And we would also like to receive any comments from the commission and the public so that any comments or requests from today can be implemented into the final draft that we will have the public hearing for. And as a reminder, this is the second public hearing, the adoption hearing. The first reading was the one we had prior to the state's review. So there's 2 readings. Okay, so as a reminder, we did do this process in 2 phases over 2 fiscal years, and that's important. It will be important when I get to the future slide. But we started the process with public involvement in the fiscal year 21. We collected data and analyzed it, and we also were happy to receive a $50,000 grant to offset the cost to the town. Phase 2, we did the policies. We had a workshop with the LPA, and we had that first public hearing for transmittal. That was the first reading. And then in April, as Dan had mentioned, we got the ORC report, and now we have updated the goals, objectives, policies, and data to reflect any comments in that report. So as you can see, we are, like Dan said, we're kind of at the end of this project. We're tonight at this workshop that we are doing just to give you kind of an overview so that the hearing will be smooth and implement any comments that you might have. So as a reminder, I think you remember we had a very small attendance to the public meeting that we had where we did the polling. But the town manager at the time offered those same questions in paper form. So overall, we did get comments from 106 people after the meetings. So I think we did pretty well with public participation. As a review, we had the workshop today where we're going to look at the amended plan, and I'm just going to basically summarize the changes that we had. And then like to see you schedule the adoption hearing for June. Once that has been adopted, it will go to the state for their final review, and they'll just make sure we covered what they wanted us to change. They have a review period, which is approximately 45 days. And then what they do is post a notice on their website to say it's in effect. So it technically doesn't go into effect until August after that 45-day review. And then there's a chance for anybody to challenge if that were the case. So the objections, recommendations, and comments, the ORC report. As a reminder, objections are the things that must be addressed, meaning if you do not address them, the DEO cannot accept your plan. The recommendations are the state's recommendation of how to handle any objections that they have, and then comments and technical assistance are optional, and you just do them if you want to strengthen your plan and you agree with the comments. So kind of a scorecard, we only had 1 objection, and what we left out was a level of service for solid waste. That was an easy fix. We used a standard the county uses, which is 8.22 pounds per day. You're going to, if you know the county's plan, it is a different number, but that's because we're expressing it in pounds, and I think they do theirs in tons, but it's the same exact amount. Then we had comments, and this was just to assist the local governments. And three that I'd like to mention is the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council had mentioned that it is best practice to put all your level of services into the capital improvements element, meaning it's duplicative. You may have a level of service for water in your infrastructure element, but they want you to list all of your level of services in one place, and it just makes it easier. So we did that, so that was an easy change. The coastal high hazard area map, the date that we had on there was the date that we pulled the data, and the state wanted us to say, okay, when was the data actually created? So that date was 2017. I spoke to the state, so we changed that. We just changed the date. The map really didn't change. And third, they require us to put a water supply plan, put a policy in there that we will have a water supply plan by 2023. I think it's May of 2023. And that is the state requirement. Oh, there we go. So as I had mentioned, there's the coastal high hazard map. The only thing that changed is the data right underneath that says June of 2017. Technical assistance. Okay, although not required in the ORC report from the DEO, technical assistance was provided by agencies that review the plan. That would be South Florida Water Management, Florida Department of Transportation, Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. There were changes that we made based upon that technical assistance because we felt it strengthened the plan and did not change the intent. It was just the wording. But there were some policy issues that we did not change. And an example of this, Treasure Coast Regional Planning wanted to see stronger language to support the getting rid of septic tanks. But that is a policy issue of the commission, and I think the way it's worded is the strength you wanted. However, if you do want to make the language stronger, requiring the elimination of septic tanks, that would be your direction to me. But we did not make that change because that is kind of a policy change. It's not just a rewording. So other notable matters, at the last public hearing, we talked about density. There was a question about property rights, and was 2.5 units per acre the right number? Myself, in cooperation with the town attorney, did a thorough analysis and found no legal challenge for the 2.5 units per acre. So we are recommending that stay the same, and the state was okay with that number as well. But again, that's a policy issue of the commission. But in its state, the 2.5 units per acre we feel is legally acceptable and not challengeable. So we don't recommend a change there. Another thing you should know, and I think we mentioned this early on, is once your comp plan is updated, you will have to look at your land development regulations, because during the process we found some things that need to be updated after your comp plan is accepted in August. We want to clean up the language about accessory dwelling units. There was a comment about the size. An example of this would be if you had a really large home and your accessory dwelling or your guest house could be 50% of the size of that really large home, is that going to be okay with you? So a member from the public said maybe you want to make it a maximum size for a guest house. But again, that is a policy issue. We don't have to change it. It is something that you would direct me to do, maybe. There was also, you have really two zoning districts. You've got R1 and you've got residential estate zoning. Residential estate zoning, no one here has it, okay? The way your land development is worded is that if you want to have an accessory dwelling unit, you have to rezone to residential estate. So the question would be, do you want to leave it like that so that if you want to add a guest house, you have to rezone? Or do you want to make it so that everyone with R1 can add a guest house, if that makes sense? So that would be a policy decision. Do you want them to go through an extra hoop, or do you want it to just be done by right and they just come and get a building permit to add that guest house, as long as they have the proper size lot, which is 27,500 square feet? Okay, I see questions. You want me to keep going? Yes? Okay. So we also want to look at the rezoning process, because it's not very clear the way it is written in the LDR. And also the subdivision regulations are not written well enough. We'd like to see some language just modified. But I want to make it clear that this is not a rewrite of the LDR. These are just sections that we want to, myself with legal wants to just clean up so it's easier when you go through lot mergers and lot splits and you get accessory dwelling units. As I had mentioned, we're required by law to develop a water supply plan. You don't have one. And that is in the policy. We added it needs to be done by May of 2023, and that is based on what the state said we had to do. We also, through the process, found that we didn't have a recent interlocal agreement with the county, who is our water and sewer provider. And we think that that is something that should be done like right away, because it would protect you. So I know you got a pile of paper, but I tried to make it very organized. You basically have three matrices, three spreadsheets. The first spreadsheet is the one from the ORC report, and that's going to be the shortest one. because those are the only things that the state found rose to the level of needing to be in that report. The only thing that has to be changed, according to the state, is the level of service for solid waste. The other changes I made were just because I thought it would strengthen the plan, and they were easy fixes. The other second matrix you have are all of the agencies that reviewed our plan. They had comments that did not rise to the level of the ORC report. However, we looked at every one of those, and if they were reasonable and they weren't policy changes, we went ahead and made those changes. And you'll see that in your strike through an underlined version of the comprehensive plan, which will be the changes between when we submitted and what we're going to approve. Oh, and then third, we have a matrix of all the public comments that we've seen since the beginning and all the comments we've gotten from the commission since the beginning, that third one. So my recommendation tonight is we just kind of have a general review of the comments that we have in the matrices. If there was anything that you had a question about, I would want to answer it. We would like to see any public comment tonight so that we can make any changes if need be. And we'd also like to see you schedule the second reading, which would be the adoption hearing for June 28th. And that will be a public hearing, which will have to be advertised in the local newspaper. And once we get that date, I'll get that ad to April so we can get going. So that was an overview. Hopefully I didn't go too fast.
No, I'd like to ask a question about the water supply plan. I'm a little confused about that. Normally, at least my experience, the water supply plan is generated by the organization or the jurisdiction that's actually supplying the water, and we're not supplying water to ourselves. Obviously, it's coming from Martin County. I certainly understand the part about having interlocal agreement, and I assume that they have a pretty standard interlocal agreement that we can probably just fill in the blanks. We don't have to we don't have to generate that from ground zero ourselves.
Right.
But talk to me about the water supply plan. I don't think I understand that in this context.
Yes, and so I'm prepared to answer that. In the community planning law, it says what has to be in a comp plan, and that is in chapter 163.3177. And the way the law is written is a little odd in that if a government does not own their own water supply, which it would be us, and we get our water from a public utility, which would be Martin County, then if that utility has a permit allocation, and that means how much water they have a permit for, if it's over 300 million gallons per day, we constitute less than 1% of their water supply, we don't have to do it. The problem is the allocation for Martin County is 21 million gallons per day, not 300. So we don't meet that 300 million threshold. It's the way the law's written. But the water supply plan is just a box you got to check. It should be an easy thing to do, but it is required by state law according to this law.
Do you just attach Martin County Utilities water supply
I had
plan?
that question from the manager, and I think no. But the good news is they do have a template to make it very easy to do, but it's just like with your comp plan, you have to do it specific to the town and not to the county, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But the data is going to be, it should be very easy because all the data that we had to do for this plan is very recent because the regional water supply plan was adopted in 2022. And we have all that data. It's just plugging it in and doing the plan and submitting it.
Commissioner Fender.
Just piggybacking on some of your comments, my understanding is that we do have an interlocal agreement, especially related to, maybe we need multiple, but we certainly have one that we signed when we created the septic sewer on the north side of the peninsula. And I think we've talked to them a little bit about the stuff we would have to do on the right and on the south side.
Those earlier interlocal agreements that you have, yeah, it can be a template for this, but they were kind of very specific to septic, and so in our research, including cooperation from Martin County, we found that there is no interlocal agreement encompassing water on the whole. They operate under a franchise agreement that was originally given by the town to a private utility back in 1963, and then somewhere in the early 80s, Martin County bought that private utility as part of their regional system, and so that really is the only thing we have in our relationship. And the concern I have, and I would recommend to you, that is that you really want to have an interlocal agreement really for the town residents' protection, so that you then can't be treated differently than other residents throughout the county. Because right now, if they chose to treat you differently, your only remedy would be to cancel the franchise agreement, then you would be without water. So you're really unprotected right now.
Did you
So-
follow up from that?
I get it, that's fine, thank you.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, mine's more just a general question about the term level of service. Is that just like a goal? I'm looking at the solid waste level, and that's our trash, correct? So level of service, it keeps talking about level of service standards. This is like, so like for the trash, 8.22 pounds per day, that means how much they should be picking up? Average, like that's
That's
the
how
amount they
much
should be
you're
taking?
actually, that's how much you're producing.
Okay.
And I know it sounds like a lot, it is, but the previous plan was 11.97 pounds per day and it's pounds per day per person.
Per person, okay.
It's a lot, but it is consistent with what they have at the county, and since they're our solid waste provider, we felt we should just be the same as what the county is. You're going to create the same amount of waste as somebody that's in Martin County. That makes sense.
Just remember, that's a gross number. It includes yard trash, it includes recycling and household waste.
That is pretty gross.
But it's less than it was in the 1989 plan, if that makes you feel better.
And so for water, it's how much water people use on average, and for like drainage, so it's just level of service is just your goal or what you're actually doing. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
But when we look at the data, you have to make sure you have that allocated, which you do. And when I say you, the county has it allocated so that they have enough water in their permit to provide
Okay.
that level of service. If they didn't, then we would have a problem, but we don't have a problem.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay, so I don't see any other comments. Well, I do. Commissioner Fender.
Okay, that's all you have? I saw all kinds of notes.
I did, but you know what? As I read it all, then I started to understand
So
more as I was
interested in
making.
the wording on the septic to sewer, you mentioned that they recommended stronger wording, so I guess do we have the ability to pull up the soft wording that we're concerned about?
I don't have it.
Can you tell me what page is on, maybe?
Do you have the strike through and underline with you?
I don't know. I've got
Actually, you know
this,
what?
Which is massive.
Okay, I probably have it on the matrix. But basically, the comment
There are some
from,
strike-throughs.
yeah, oh, you do?
I mean, I see
Yeah, I see some.
some modifications. If you can take me to a chapter, verse, and...
So that would be, yeah, so, let me look in my matrix, hang on a second. It would be in the infrastructure element.
Infrastructure, what color is that?
That would be, so it would be on your public, no, not your public, that would be on your,
Wastewater, blue.
It would-
IWR3 wastewater.
yeah,
Is that possible?
it would be on your agency comment matrix.
Oh,
And it would be
okay, agency
under-
matrix.
Is it, let's see, I think it would be under infrastructure.
Is there a number?
Hang on. Because many of these. Okay, here we go.
Strengthen these policies.
I know where to find it. Hang on a second.
What's the policy number?
That's what I'm trying to find.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. It was a comment from the Regional Planning Council. And I thought it was under infrastructure, but I think it was under conservation.
Do you have let me have the clicker out.
There's a future land use objective of elimination of septic tank systems. I don't know if
Was
that,
that by Stephanie?
excuse me?
Yes. Okay, wait. Thank you, Heather. She found it. So if you go to the agency matrix, it is policy CON 1.2.4. The comment was, and now what page that would be on? Conservation,
For Con GOP in order to ensure that
that's it.
net positive progress on elimination of septic systems is accomplished. So this is the old wording and the left right?
So what she would like to see is that it would be strengthened to explicitly limit new development where there is not a central sanitary sewer connected to the parcel. And she also had a comment under future land use 2.6. So that would be, if we could add a policy to say that you can't add a home if there's not a septic tank, but that would be a policy decision, that would be a change. That would be something that you have not directed me to do thus far, because there was extensive discussions about septic tanks, and that would be a policy issue. It was not an objection, which means you do not have to change it. It is a comment by the Regional Planning Council. So it would be dependent on how strong you feel about getting rid of septic tanks. That would be a policy decision of the commission.
So if we were to strengthen it and apply that recommendation, that would also imply that if there was a lot that someone wanted to build on, they could not build on it until they had a
Yeah.
municipal
Thank you.
That's true.
sewer hookup, which
Yep.
would basically kill development
Yes.
until,
That would be our perspective, yes.
No, it is a strong change. It would be a very strong policy decision to make that statement. But I want to reiterate that this was just a comment made by the Regional Planning Council. It did not rise to the level of the DEO, meaning it was not an objection. The way the DEO does it is they have all these agencies review the plan just like they do. The agencies within 30 days send their comments, which could be a lot, to the state. The state goes through every single comment and says, I don't agree that this needs to change, or I do. And that didn't make it into the report. But it is a policy decision. If you want to go with the recommendation or the comment that was made from the local regional planning council, that would be a policy change, and it would be a strong change.
so I'll say two things. One is I'll get the sense of my fellow commissioners, and I think I know what their answer will be, but I'd like to hear it anyway. The second is, and probably more importantly, it doesn't seem like it has to be as black and white as all that. There must be, if they want to strengthen the wording, that doesn't mean they want to, that doesn't imply locking it down entirely. That means making it stronger wording. So there's a way to find a middle ground, which is what I always try to do. But I am interested to see if anybody feels as adamant about it as I do.
And let me ask a question, and I think I know the answer to this. You know, we obviously have a sewer service in North Sewalls Point, and if there's an empty lot there and they build a new home there, they have to hook into the, okay, so we've really already it's really already been taken care of for the north part of the town.
Right.
South part of the town, it's a non-starter. There is no sewer system.
Yeah.
So I kind of think this one, it might be, and this is only my opinion, it might be better off just to let this sleeping dog lie for the time being.
And the way it's written is we encourage people to connect, but we don't not give you a building permit if you don't, if that makes sense. So there's a strong change to explicitly say that if you don't have central sewer, you can't develop your parcel, basically.
Anybody else want to weigh in, just so I figure out where your head's at?
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yeah, I think that wording is, because it's out of their control, that just means they can't develop, and it's not totally out of their control, so I wouldn't support that strong wording. And kind of with the mayor, if we have the encouragement,
We do encourage.
and then once we actually get it, you have to hook up, it kind of solves itself. I don't think we need to.
Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Everything Kylie just said is pretty much what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that said,
Go ahead.
to me, stronger wording might be, and you can correct me, I'm just thinking out loud,
Heather will take the notes.
I don't know what the exact wording is now, and you can correct me, but I would think from a comprehensive plan visioning standpoint, it should be clear that the vision of the town is to move to fully municipal sewer and eradicate septic tanks. So to me, that is a stronger term. Our vision is to eradicate septic tanks. I mean, maybe.
And I don't know if it's written that strongly, but we do.
Well, that's my point about the middle ground between completely locking out development and stating a visionary statement of a comprehensive plan that is a long-term direction of the town. That, to me, that's what I would interpret them to mean by strengthening the wording. Not completely saying that you can't develop, which is kind of where you talk.
That's what they're saying, but the way you have it is, you have many goals about eliminating septic tanks already in your plan, and important to note, you had it in your 1989 plan, because when we did the side-by-side comparison, so it's not a new topic, you were talking about it in 1989.
I understand.
But they're saying explicitly limit new development where there is no sewer. That's pretty strong, and that is a policy decision.
Strengthen to explicitly limit.
Explicitly
new
limit.
development Where there is not central sanitary
Yeah.
sewer.
That's strong.
And I don't think we can go there right now.
Can you show us where we already are
Yeah,
with the
that's
wording?
What
Yeah.
do we say today is the
Okay.
question.
If you'll give me a second, I'll have to pull up the plan.
I can see it in the future land use
Con
section, but
1.2.4, con, what color is con?
That, hold on a second.
Con 1.2.4
green?
is the last comment on page 9 of the green section, I think.
I'm just going to pull up the plan.
2 point, did I say 2 or, no, I'm sorry, I told you wrong, it's 2 point.
1.2.4.
It's still green.
CON.
1 point,
I'm going to pull
light
up the actual
green.
column.
1.2, there
It's
we go.
page.
Light green, page 4,
Yeah.
right? Objective con 1.2,
0.4.
may I read it?
Certainly, go ahead.
1.2.4, the town of Sewalls Point shall discourage the creation of new septic tanks and drain fields for new development through the enforcement of standards for availability and mandatory connection to available sewer systems no less strict than those set forth in sections 381 dot blah, 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 Florida statutes.
So
Okay,
we
well-
basically went with the state law. We didn't go exceed it.
Well, I mean, that is-
But I
that is-
understand
That
the
is
comment.
clearly a vision, so I mean, you've made my point, and I think that says kind of what I was stating, I think.
So are you happy with the way it's written? Is that what you're saying? Or do you want to see it strong?
You asked me if I'm happy.
I am asking you if you're happy. Well,
Are you moderately satisfied?
Satisfied,
this is
yeah.
the thing. We want
I will
We want-
wait and answer that question based on the comments of my fellow commissioners.
No, but what we're trying to accomplish is a plan that you can all agree upon, that meets state law, and that meets, the public comments that have been made. Obviously, there will be compromise. Nobody's going to be 100% happy, but we're trying to get to a point where it's something that you can accept as your vision.
Well, I'm telling you point blank, I do not want them to put a septic tank on the Hammerhead Peninsula, so that's my personal problem, but
I agree.
Mr. Hudson, you have something you wanted to add in here?
Yeah, just, this is a comment from the Regional Planning Council, and we do value their comments, but in this case, you are not required to respond to it. I mean, you can simply do nothing. I think the threshold question is would you like us to craft something that's a little bit more middle ground or more visionary than what we have, but I would recommend going with what you've got in front of you at this point, so.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I just wanted to point out to Commissioner Fender, there's more in the future land use which is the first element, page 10. It just has 3 little, under the objective of elimination of septic tanks, yes. Page 10 in the orange, which is the first one, if you go to the little tab. Oh, wait, no, in the back. Go to the, not the data inventory analysis, but the goals and the right? That section, go to page 10.
10, thank you. What section of page 10?
It talks about it in three little,
Town will work
The objective
toward
and then the
elimination
policy.
of all I like it. The town will collaborate with Martin County to connect. That's great. The town will continue to seek grants to offset. Okay. Oh,
anyways, there's just more mention of it.
That's good stuff.
So, yeah, so we did make some changes, and those were from South Florida Water Management District.
Okay, good.
The one thing I did want to mention, because you're going to see a lot of changes in the data, and the reason being is this. When we did the project, we did it in two parts. We did the data first, and then we did the goals, objectives, and policies, right? So we did them in 2 different fiscal years. When we were pulling the data, the regional water supply plan was not adopted, so we used data from the 2016 plan. Fast forward to fiscal year '22, then their 2022 water supply plan was adopted. So the state, DEO, did not say you must update to 2022, but we felt it was a better plan if we did. So we went through and took all the data that we had from 2016 and we updated it to 2022. Again, that was not required by the state. It was strongly encouraged, which we did. And now that we've done it, it'll be easier to do a water supply plan because we have the data pulled. So at the end of the day, the changes we made were not required, but we thought they were best practice.
And one quick thing, on the ones we just mentioned, at least on my copy, it looks like they're on those 3, there's a little typo with the spacing.
On,
Sewer connections?
where's?
On the future land use objective 2.6, elimination of septic systems, the ones that Commissioner Fender just read, at least on my copy, the second, within the protect campaign and sewer connections don't have spaces on my copy. Just a little,
Which policy is that? You got it?
future land use.
Okay, okay. We will make that change.
Every single pair.
Commissioner Fender?
All right. Are we beating that one up a little bit?
I'm good.
We're still not getting a park at the Hammernet Peninsula. Okay.
So am I hearing, though, that we're not going to change that one? We're
I
moving
think
on.
you have it written
It's
with an adequate level of vision.
strongly encouraged, it's
Yeah,
just not required.
yeah. Okay. I was also interested in, you mentioned that in this process, you've learned that we need to make some changes to some ordinances. So I was just wondering if you could give us a hint.
So we were talking about the land development regulations.
Yes.
We were talking about the accessory dwelling units, discussing, and we could do it in a workshop, whether or not you want to limit the size of the guest houses, because they would, right now it's 50% of the size of the main house, which could be big. That's up to you. That was a comment we got from the public. But we did not think that belonged in the comp plan. We think it would be better suited in the LDR, because the land development regulations are specific, whereas the comp plan is broad. And the other thing is, we wanted to talk about getting that interlocal agreement with the county. And let me, can you go back to that slide? The list.
This one?
Go back again. The rezoning process, and the fact that right now, you have to rezone a residential estate to have a guest house. Do you want to make it by right? And all you would have to do is take the language out that says you have to rezone. Or do you want people to go through a process, if they want a guest house, they need to have that residential estate zoning category. Right now, the minimum lot size for that would be 27,500 feet, 27,500. So these are just processes that are in the LDR. You could probably do it in one meeting, really. They're just making it easier to follow, and the policy decision would be, do you want them to go through rezone to get a guest house, or do you want everybody to have one, if they want one, and they have the lot size requirements? But again, we don't have to decide that today. This is in August, once the comp plan's adopted, we could go through the list with you, and we could have a workshop on it.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask you about the guest house question.
Okay?
And, I didn't quite understand your algorithm, but, we do have some currently active concerns about building with multiple guest houses. So I didn't hear you, your algorithm to me sounded like square footage and things, but I didn't hear you mention the number of guest houses anyone can have.
It's in the comp plan. You are only allowed one per property.
Okay, so it's
It's in the comprehensive
explicitly
plan.
spelled out that you
It's-
can only have one guest house. Okay, good.
Yes, that is a policy in the comprehensive plan. that
Okay.
No house may have more than one guest house.
All right,
And that's what we heard from the public and from the commission.
good. And I think that probably is all.
Mr. Hudson, yes?
Yeah, just for the LDR revisions, what I would suggest is that we get that scoped and priced and then bring that to you before we move forward on any particular activities. And that way you can make a conscious decision about how extensive you want to make it, so.
Sounds good.
Okay. So I guess our next thing is just to make sure we have a consensus to go ahead with scheduling the second reading for adoption on June the 28th, so that Bonnie can get the public notices out.
Yes.
Is there anything else you need from us tonight?
Nope. What I'm hearing is that you're happy with the changes we made. So that will be the version that we take to the adoption hearing, and we'll advertise it, take the public comment, and you don't have to do an LPA for the second reading. This is just for the commission.
I'll make a motion to accept the current draft for second reading.
Second it.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Tombeck,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Fender,
Sure.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You guys did a good job.
All right, that brings us down to Section 12, discussion, draft town manager contract. And I think I'll turn this over to Mr. Torsivia to explain the item and start the discussion.
Well, thank you. You had asked, and we'd gone through a process where pretty much paragraph by paragraph, we went through the draft contract, and I attempted to, and hopefully did, incorporate all of your suggestions into here. Obviously, this is a kind of last chance look, presuming that whoever the selected candidate is will then see this, and unless it's the first time in my career, they will probably request some changes. But, this is the template, and this will probably be 90-95%, I would think, your final contract with whoever the selected person is.
Okay, well, thank you for that intro. Let's open it up for discussion. Looks like Commissioner Fender's going to start.
Well, I don't have any specific questions about the cost, but I did have a question. If anybody knows, including you during your conversations as this developed, what I heard coming out of the last conversation, which led to having this available prior to our discussions, if we got any feedback from any candidates, if any candidates have dropped out, if we, based on this concept and this.
They're all in at this point.
Still all in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have a final schedule, I think, as of late yesterday, so I'll pass that out tomorrow, probably.
All right. I guess to piggyback on that, my hope would be that before we waste a lot of time through talking and negotiating, that each of the candidates get a copy of this as part of their candidate packet, maybe, I don't know, if indeed we ratify this version, whatever it is, so that they see it before they go into interviews with us.
I think that'd be very helpful.
That's a good idea.
No problem with that. Commissioner Mayfield?
No, I think that's a great idea. I wish that all 5 commissioners were here so that, we could definitely work this out ahead of time so that we don't have any issues coming up in the moment. But obviously, that's out of my control, so yes, I like that idea. Get it ironed out.
Do you have any specific comments on the,
Yes, I do.
the floor is still yours.
Okay. Well, I've said it before, I'll say it again, if anybody, just in case somebody's changed their mind. But 2 things in particular, the salary and the vacation. And then there were some small things that weren't really related to, I don't think the candidate will care that much. So page 4 is the salary is $110,000.
Page 97?
Page 100.
Page 100.
Yes, which is what, what we put out before. I know I've been the person on the side, but I do not want, that is what we started paying our town manager almost 3 years ago, and she wanted more, and when we looked at those charts with, comparable municipalities, it was in line. I just don't want this to be an issue later when I think the position that I see for the town manager is a position where they have 125,000, like I said, 120, 130,000, given the projects we have going on, given our increased budget, given our small staff. I think it could alleviate some potential problems later, but.
You just want to be their favorite commissioner.
No, I want them to want to work here and to get, to get the best candidate. And that goes along with the vacation,
What page is vacation on?
page 10.
You?
I think the town manager position right now is particularly important with these projects. We don't get paid. This is none of our full-time jobs. And it's a big, important position right now. And I think that the town deserves, the best candidate. So, I believe when we hired the prior town manager, it was at 4.62 per pay period, that annual leave would be accrued, and that would work out to 3 weeks vacation, which I think seems very reasonable. I think 2 weeks vacation for someone who we're asking to come in as a experienced professional, I think the 2-week vacation is a little bit more of an entry level, and nothing wrong with it, but we're not looking for, this is not an entry level job we're hiring. So I think that
That's not the way I read this.
I thought in accordance with the policy, I was told at the last meeting, I believe, was 2 weeks. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it says it in there, no more than,
Well, I just think at one time,
They
yeah.
can't take it out, take it over the 2
But I
weeks.
I thought Chief Tina told us that was and she's giving me the
giving us a
thumbs up.
thumbs up.
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable. It's not unusual for the, a director, or in this case, a town manager, to have a slightly expanded vacation. And I think, 3 weeks is probably the right number to start here, so I would have no objections to making that modification. I don't know,
I don't have a problem either.
Frank, you have a problem with that? Okay, so we have a consensus.
And I believe that's what we hired originally last time, was 4.6.
I believe so. And in your personnel policies, what you have is in years 1 to 5, you get 80 hours of leave, which is the 2 weeks.
Okay.
Years 5 to 10, it goes up to 120 hours, which is
Which
the
is-
3 weeks. So I'll just simply reference 120 hours
So
spread
is
3
that the
weeks.
matrix we will use?
No.
I mean,
This
well,
is-
with
this
with our
is the-
modification?
Right, this is the eligibility and rate of accrual, so it explains how, employees get 80 hours a year for the first 5 years, 120 for the next 5, 100.
So I guess,
60.
May I?
Yes, you may.
Can I ask, so with the change that we're discussing, are we trying to take that matrix and make it a little different for the town manager? Is that what I understand?
Well, if it's going to be the 120, you could simply say, the personnel policies as reflected for years of service, 5 to 10 years.
That is the first
The
line
sec-
item is five.
The first was 1 to 5, the second one is 5
Oh, so you're
to
just
10.
eliminating the first row?
Right, you're basically saying you're coming in at step 2.
Okay. Well, but does that also, the step continue on? Are they staying a step ahead, is my question? Which is okay, I'm wondering, I just want to make it clear.
I think I'll make it real simple. I'll just say 120 hours
Right.
for 3 weeks accrued in accordance with the policy.
Keep it simple.
I'll keep it simple. I was overcomplicating it. Sorry about that. My lawyer had just got fried for a second.
Mr. Kurzman?
Yeah, I still think 110 is a very low number to come in if you had the right candidate. I mean, if the right candidate comes in and says, I'll do it for 120, and we walk away for $10,000, and the guy has a lot more experience and potentially could save the town millions of dollars in working with our grant writer to get grants and having connections in Tallahassee, you can't put a $10,000 price on that. I mean, that just has such value. It would be kind of foolish to, get somebody that's inferior, very inferior compared to what might be the leading contender overall. Or maybe even have somebody not show up because they see the 110. I think putting 120 is at least a little bit more realistic.
I can do that.
I just feel uncomfortable putting 110. I said that before, and I still feel very strong about that.
Well, I think, I agree with you, and what I've been thinking about and what I wanted to suggest here is that, once we've gone through and essentially, approved or, feel that what we're going to put together is okay, that, once we've decided on the candidate on June the 2nd, that we would give him the ability to negotiate a contract. And what I was thinking of here, rather than saying, $110,000, is give him some flexibility over $110,000 to take advantage of a certain level of experience that candidate might have. It may also be a case of making an adjustment on a salary based on whether they take insurance or not. We might want to make an adjustment for that. And the other thing that I think is important here, and I passed it on to Mr. Hudson and Mr. Torcivia during the week here, is that what we've put in here is that we are going to increase the town manager's salary at the same rate as other Sewalls Point employees. But I think we had briefly discussed a mechanism for increasing that based on excellent performance. And it's my understanding that you can't give out a bonus or incentive pay for a public employee unless it's identified in the employment agreement. So what we could do here is, we can come up with whatever that salary we think is the right salary, and then come up with some kind of an incentive payment for a year that, hey, maybe they go out and get $15 million in grants, and we're really impressed with that, so we'll say, hey, we're going to give you an incentive of up to 5% of your salary. It would be a one-time payout. It wouldn't be included in the base salary, so it wouldn't compound year to year, and it wouldn't be included in the pension calculation. And that way, we could take care of outstanding performance from year to year. So if we could put something like that in here, give Mr. Torcivia the flexibility of negotiating a salary up to, let's say, $125,000, and he, takes care of the any adjustment he thinks is proper for experience, and any adjustment that might necessarily be needed for health insurance, when somebody isn't taking health insurance or whatever. I'd like him to have that rather than to publicly try to negotiate a contract, which I think is unwieldy and not the right thing to do. Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I think you kind of started to answer what I was going to ask at the end of that, because I understand what you're saying about the negotiation, and I don't have a lot of experience negotiating contracts, so I'm going back to what I know, which is when we did it before, and it didn't seem like there was an opportunity to negotiate the contract successfully or in a manner that I thought was, because you're in the public setting, and they have something to gain and something to lose, and so do we, and we're the five of us, and we're not all agreeing, we have to be a team. So what you're saying is have the higher salary, and then the ability to go up to that, and give the town attorney the ability to, I love the idea that we're all going to agree on a candidate and then just negotiate the price, but I didn't think that happened. Is that going to necessarily happen? Because I feel like, and again, I wish Commissioner Campo was here, but I felt like he was very much contingent on the person was going to make the salary, meaning like he kind of wanted to.
Well,
I'm just worried about the moment, when it's happening, it's going to be all messy. So
Well,
That's my point.
that's what I'm trying, I think I'm trying to avoid here. If we, we'll have the interviews on the 1st and the 2nd, the afternoon of the 2nd, we'll decide on the candidate,
Right.
and then we'll say, okay, the town attorney will negotiate the contract. He's got 99% of it already here,
Okay.
and then, once he's negotiated that, you bring it back to us 2 weeks later, or when Commissioner Fender and Commissioner Kurzman have returned from vacation, and we can approve the contract. And that's
Because I know you have experience with this, is that how it's worked?
how I'm used to working, which doesn't make it 100%
No,
right,
I'm just
but
saying, I
used to it.
like the knowledge, I
I'm
like
used
the
to that,
input.
yes.
Okay. So in theory, you were saying the 120 would be the high, and you'd come in, with the ability to, I'm just trying to gauge how, and the 110 would be the base.
Well, I think, once again, it's, we can certainly, make some, comments during the meeting on the 2nd, saying, hey, we chose this gentleman or this lady because of, their level of experience, and, we should ask Mr. Torcivia to take that into consideration when he's negotiating the contract. But I think it's easier for one person to negotiate. Obviously,
Yeah.
Glenn knows exactly what we're looking for here, with the possible exception of what this,
Have in my hand.
with the exception of perhaps the max that we're going to. That seems to be the only real issue here.
Right.
You know, and so if we tell them, hey, why don't we set up a max of $125,000 and let's see what we can do. Commissioner Fender.
So, all that said, I feel like, and I don't have my fellow Republican with me, and I don't care about the number, by the way.
This is a nonpartisan board.
Indeed it is, but I'm not highly outnumbered. But I'm not talking about number. I'm not negotiating number. I'm saying that I think the psychology of what you guys have just discussed is setting yourself up for heartache. I don't think you want to enter into a negotiation. I think you have a job and a salary, and you're interviewing people that want to apply for your job. And if after you do all that, you say, okay, now let's negotiate a salary, we're going to start this damn process all over again. And it's going to, I'm trying not to have us do this twice again. So the whole point of establishing a salary, advertising it, and doing it means that we want people to apply for the job that want to work for that salary. I don't care whether I care, but I don't care much what number is you put on there. I just don't think after the fact you want to say, oh, well, this is the number we put on, but now we're willing to talk to you about what you're willing to accept. That gets us back in the situation that left us without a town manager currently, because we entered into what should never have been a negotiation for a contract renewal. And I think you need to avoid that at all costs. And what I hear you saying is, well, and I'm okay with putting a bonus thing in and all
I
that.
understand it. I had initially said, let's get a higher number, that was my
you did.
initial.
I'm out, no, I don't care. I mean, like I said,
Well, you must care
I
because
do-
you're saying it.
Okay, I'm saying the wrong words. I do care, of course. But I'm saying that I don't think you should leave it to a negotiation
Okay.
after the fact. I think you should decide what it is. I think you've advertised it, and you weren't happy with that advertisement, but you now have 9 candidates, and we're in a public forum, and they're all listening, saying, oh, good, I get to talk to them about making more money after I decide that they want to hire me. And I just don't think that is a very healthy approach to this process. It's just my opinion, psychologically, because I hire a lot of people, and I want them to be happy when they get hired, and I want to be happy with them after I hire them, right? So as soon as we enter into negotiation where this person or convinces us, or you say, oh, we're now trapped into accepting X $1,000s more of our budget than what we allocated, that, it's just going to sit wrong, not only with us, but with a whole lot of townspeople. So I'm going to speak for the conservative people of our community who wanted to tar and feather us for considering a 30% pay increase for the previous town manager, right? So I'm saying be careful.
So what's your number?
I don't have one.
Okay.
But I did tell you what my number was before, which was let the candidate tell us what their number is on their application when they submit it. So that we can say, oh, I can interview this person, and I can give them a bounce up from what they want. I want to hire people for more than they made in their previous job, and I don't want to hire people at a step down in their career. That's just my personal philosophy, and all the people that I hire in my personal business. I want them moving up in their careers, and so once I find out that I'm about to hire a person who's going to take a step down, I'm going to be worried about them, right? But that's just me. That's my personal weird baggage. So when I say I don't care about the number, to me, the number is immaterial because I need to know what's going to make that person happy, but I don't want to talk to them until I know I'm going to make them happy. So we're already in a weird business negotiation from my perspective, right? So now I want to be happy with whatever number we put on here, stick solid, and I'll be outnumbered on what that number is, so I'm at your mercy, but that's okay. I'm just saying that I don't want to enter into a negotiation with them after I want to hire this person. Once because I don't want to hire them if I have to negotiate with them. This process is the negotiation.
Mr. Tosidia.
Well, I pressed the button when you were on the bonus concept, but what I'm hearing is a consensus that you want me to come up with some language that says something along the lines of what you'd indicated. that at the discretion of the town commission, an additional increase of up to 5% may be awarded for outstanding performance in a bonus lump sum type way, so it doesn't go to the base, because there is a state law that says you can't award a bonus unless, now, the one concern I have about that is I've got to look at that state law again. Usually that has to be available to all employees, but I'll double check that. If I'm wrong about that, then you can do that as a lump sum, but I'll look at that.
I think you can do is lump sum. Commissioner Fender.
And then my question about that is, what is the psychological effect if we don't give it to them, right? So, I mean, I'm all about giving bonuses, but like you said, you should give it.
Well, I mean, that goes back to us developing a performance plan for the new town manager, making some marks, hey, you're going to hit the marks, and then we can talk about it. It's nothing that, I mean, there may be a year where everything broke right, we got a lot of grants, we give them 5%. There may be a year where there wasn't much going on, they don't get anything. And whether they're going to be disappointed or not, this is a target. This is something they can, strive for. It makes sense.
Can you make it quantitative on your bonus based on the quantitative result of their annual review?
Well, we're going to get the opportunity to do that.
Well, I mean, to me, that is your bonus plan, right? If you're actually setting a bonus based on the merit of their review, then maybe, that's tangible. If they got a 5, they get 1%. If they got a 4, they get,
Well, we could do it that way, or we could do it, based on performance goals that we
My point is, if
establish.
you did it this way, then there would be no question of them not getting it, and there would be no disappointment of, hey, this is what your review said, so this is what you got, right?
See, I kind of think that the normal evaluation, if we do a normal evaluation, as long as it's satisfactory, they get the same percentage as the
I like that
as
plan.
the town employees, and then we look at something different for, a performance plan.
I just don't know how you specify it.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Go right ahead.
So, I just want to make sure I understand everyone's position. So, I like the idea of performance-based incentives, per se. So, looking at this contract, what would, okay, so you were talking, there's two things going on. You're talking about the negotiations with the town manager, I'm sorry, the town attorney and the potential candidate to get to a base salary, correct? Because no evaluations would be going on till
Right.
work has already been done.
That's right. This is something in the
This is,
future.
this is the bonus stuff. I think Glenn brought us back to that point. So what if, we just agreed on the, I don't believe Commissioner Kurzman specifically stated his side on, I heard Commissioner Fenders and Mayor Tomfex about the negotiations with the town attorney. I'm kind of in the middle. I like the simplicity of just like, this is your salary and then not, because like I said last time, again, that's all I really had. It didn't feel like, I don't feel like it went well. But then agreeing on a basic salary and then employing some of those performance more for the future, kind of, that's where I'm leaning, but I would like to hear what Commissioner Kurzman, how he feels about what the mayor said, if you're willing.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, the way I see things. In other words, we were talking about when we hire people, but the people we hire are different. In other words, if you're going in, grabbing a software, hardware developer, it's a lot different than a town manager. You're talking about somebody that can control millions of dollars bringing into the town to save us that. So when you hire a software tech, hardware tech, whatever it might be, my son's got friends come right out of college only a couple of years ago, and they're making $200,000 a year developing software. I mean, it's just a whole different animal. But I would like to get something more definitive, like you said, I agree with you, more definitive, make it a little more simplicity involved with this. You're trying to find a town manager that has a good track record, that's capable of doing something. If you have the best candidate available, you don't want to lose that. And there's a reason we're going to pick that person. It's the person we see in that chair, hopefully for the next 10 years or more. And they're going to be an asset to everything that we have, whether it be our finance end, the projects we have. We're in a different territory than we were, let's say, when I first became a commissioner. We're talking now with phase 2, 3, We were talking about things changed with the road. The only thing we had was just phase one at the time when I first got in here. Then we've been through since then. Now, right now, Dan is the third town manager I've sat next to, and I've only been here 3.5 years. And, I'm going to sit next to my fourth town manager by the time I'm done. And, I just want to make sure that next person that comes in, we get it right, and you give them a fair increase, whatever. That's the one thing we need to do. You can't leave it wide open where they could get a $20,000 raise. It should be a percentage, which I do agree with, whether it be 2.5% to 5%. It shouldn't be ever at 20%, because the residents will be up in arms when they see that kind of increase. But I wouldn't mind seeing if you have the right person coming in, putting it 120, 125. But like I say, that's if they're qualified. You want the qualified individual with that kind of experience. If they've never been a town manager before, and they don't have the experience, in Tallahassee helping with grants or water management programs that we need right now, which is very important. That's a more qualified individual than the person that came just from finance. It's just, you're talking two different animals. So, you're going to lose maybe a good, experienced person to grab a person that has a little bit of finance or a good amount of finance background, but never did the rest. So you can't compare, that person maybe would be a 110 candidate, but a person that's fully qualified can get the maximum. It's all qualifications. Whenever you do things, even, like I say, in my business, the more qualifications you have, the more I pay. If you're really good, I'm going to pay you over $100 an hour, because that's what you're worth, and I want to lose you. If I have to train you, you're going to be making a heck of a lot less. But, experience is king. A good track record is very important, and a history. You get a person with 20-something years experience as a town manager who was very successful where they came from. That's a big asset, and compared to a person that's never been a town manager, I just think you're comparing apples to oranges.
Right, and I think that's when you get if we give the town attorney the flexibility to make some of that judgment based on some of the conversations they hear from us. Let's say we see a person that's, really a talented person, a go-getter, and he's really not an experienced town manager. We say, this is somebody who really wants this job. We think he can do a good job. But he's starting at the bottom of the ladder. He's starting at $110,000, okay? Whereas if we find a 20-year person that, has all the contacts, the experience, we would want to start him at maybe $125,000. And this gives, this gives us the flexibility to, come up with that number during a contract or an employment agreement negotiation. And I think that's more typical than anything else that I've experienced over my career. So, Commissioner Fender?
Just don't, I hear what you're all saying. I'm just saying, don't lose sight of the fact that you live in a town of 2,000 people, right? I mean, so there's a monetary and budget reality here. There's a reason why baseball players get $1 million a year, right? There's also a reason why town managers of 10,000 population towns make more than town managers of 2,000 population towns, right? So just, I get the qualifications and, sometimes you got to realize what you need to hire for this town, right? And you decide what you want to pay for.
Commissioner Mayfield?
I understand that point, but I think the salary we've been talking about, I'm really taking that into consideration.
Okay.
That's exactly why I think the 125,000 for an experienced candidate is, because I know what's happening in the town and the projects that we have, and I see how small our staff is. Those are things you don't necessarily totally see when you're just a citizen. So I understand that input. And maybe when things are more settled, like Commissioner Kurzman said when he came in. But when I hear what's going on and all the, and again, we this is not our full-time jobs. A lot of other commissioners and council people, this is their job. So we need someone who's good. So I just want to say that by virtue of saying I think the salary should be this, doesn't mean that we're just throwing money at people because we love to. I think this is what it's worth, and I think it's really important what the town is doing right now, these projects, and it makes our budget a lot higher than it used to be. Anywho, Mayor, I do like that line of thinking. It's the most logical, because it satisfies everyone here who's talked about paying less for someone who did it. So I think, like I said, I was in the middle. I can get on board with that. It's the most logical and would probably, hopefully, end up being the most accurate. I worry, again, I wish Commissioner Campo was here, because I think he was someone that was more talking about a lower salary too, and I just worry that, and I realize that it's a moot point, but I think I can get on board with that. I think I can get on board with the town attorney, assuming if we give him the authority to determine the.
Well, remember, we're still going to approve the contract.
Yes, absolutely.
And I guess I understand the comment about the number of people in town, and that's certainly consideration, but think about what we're doing here. If we get the right person and they can get us grants, we're saving a whole lot of money for those 2,300 people. If you're talking about an extra 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 for a town manager who's excellent, that's a bargain. That's going to be a bargain in the long run. And that's the way I think that's the way we should think about it. Now, I understand, I've gotten some emails that said that we shouldn't pay a town manager more than 50,000 a year. Well, okay. So there's a pretty.
Say, go to work at 7-Eleven or?
There's a pretty wide spectrum here, and I understand that, but, so anyway, Mr. Hudson, you have.
If I could just add a comment, I know a couple of people have pointed to Commissioner Campo, but I will say that what I have interpreted his public comments to be is that he's willing to look at some flexibility in the salary depending upon the total compensation package. That's what I understand his comments to be, so.
Okay. And Commissioner Mayfield, you have?
I had some other points in the contract, actually. And I also wanted to point out that, our interim town manager, who's doing such a wonderful job, I mean, if we tallied what we're paying him on a month-to-month basis, I believe it, now granted, there's no health insurance and whatnot, but it's $144,000 a year, $12,000 a month, correct?
14,000 a month.
Yeah.
That was the
Yeah.
basis, yes.
So that's the perspective. He's doing a great job. He knows how to do this job. He would be a great full-time town manager. So
Thank
I
you.
just want to keep that. That's just the perspective of, who you.
If we could get him to stay, would you pay that amount going forward forever?
Oh, I'm not going to answer that right now. You wouldn't answer that question, that's for sure.
I'm just trying to get him to stay.
I'd have to get permission from home.
Did you have some, what you said?
Yes, I did. I have some other small contract points. So, but did you want to wrap up the?
Well, I think we can wrap up that part of it. Can we come to a consensus to allow Glenn to negotiate the contract with the individual we identify on June the 2nd, and maybe give him a top number of 125,000? Is that reasonable?
I think that's, but to Commissioner Fender's point, I do like the idea of letting them know ahead of time, kind of giving them a heads up. Like, I think if somehow, I don't know if you can, maybe it's not written in the contract per se, but I like the idea of them knowing ahead of time. I know you say they watch the meetings, but I don't,
I think
Well,
Glenn has a comment on that.
I'm going to assume that all these candidates are either watching this live or will be watching it soon. So they're hearing this conversation, right? So they have an idea where the commission's coming from. And from the beginning, you've been pretty firm about the salary being in that 110 to 120 so range.
Okay.
So I don't know that it causes heartburn if you keep the 110 in on the draft that they're going to receive from the consultant. Because again, they've all presumably heard this. Donna is presumably hearing this at some point. And, when you all say negotiate, I'm taking that as a very limited, small little negotiation window. This isn't, I've had contracts where you negotiate everything, travel allowances, car, the whole bit. I'm assuming here, this is very narrow. It's salary and, if there's any small things. And sometimes you'll see someone says, salary is less important to me than more vacation days. I've seen that. I've seen the opposite, where I don't it's more important to me to have more car allowance. So as long as the total package doesn't change, it usually works out. But we don't know which of these candidates is going to be selected. We don't know what's going to be their important issues for them.
And that's why I think it's critical we give you the flexibility to negotiate that rather than,
And that's not uncommon.
Oh, no, it's
I've done
not.
that dozens of times. That's not uncommon at all to do that.
Commissioner Mayfield?
I don't think that was from before, but I wanted to make sure we also addressed the bonuses that you were talking about.
Well, I think,
Before you address it, can I make a comment there?
go ahead.
I really liked where you were going with that, that when we backslid a little bit to the term negotiation. I like your idea about keeping the contract as it is, as written, and then knowing, based on this verbal conversation, whatever number you guys come up with, that they'll know that, okay, hey, good news. It says here 110, but it's actually going to be X, whatever that is. And that sounds a little bit more firm and less negotiating to me. And of course, there'll be some play on the vacations and the other stuff. I mean, whatever. But
Well, I think,
the bonus is a great idea.
going back, and when I say negotiation, you're right. It's more like finalizing a contract rather than negotiating,
Well,
right?
let's say that.
Okay.
Let's stop using the term negotiation.
All
because
right.
We're not, I don't
There
want
we
to
go.
negotiate.
We'll
that.
we'll use you to
Just
finalize
finalize
the,
the contract, that'd be great.
I can do that.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a better way to handle it. Okay, we're back to Commissioner Mayfield.
Yeah, I wanted to get straight the bonus thing that you were talking about. I like the whole, again, if we want to put this in there right now or wait till I liked what you were talking about with the performance stuff, but I don't remember exactly
Well,
what you were
I
saying.
had given Glenn some wording, but as I noted to him, I'm an engineer and I have no business writing anything.
The
So,
wording was really good. I'll read it. This is what he gave me, and this is what I hand wrote in here. At the discretion of
And
the
this
town
is C?
commission, it's, I just wrote it as a paragraph D.
Okay.
Hand wrote it just now.
Okay,
Oh,
Okay, I don't have it.
no, then I'm going to read it, because I was just handwriting.
All right.
At the discretion of the town commission, an additional increase of up to 5%, or whatever percent you want to make the max, may be awarded for outstanding performance. And it's pretty much that simple. The question of whether it's a bonus and lump sum or whether it's annual, I'll go back and research that, because I have myself a note, can the additional money be a bonus or not, and I'll let you know that.
Nothing, but yeah, the way you said it sounded fine to me. I don't know about the
Well,
percentage.
then you got to give the mayor credit, because that's pretty much word
Yeah,
for
let's
word.
give the mayor credit.
Got to be honest.
well, I think, yeah, and that gives us some flexibility for outstanding achievements, and if we don't put it in the employment agreement, we can't do anything. That's the bottom line. Your statutes prohibit us from doing anything unless there's something in there.
so satisfactory and nothing else means that they go along with whatever the town staff is having, and then at the town commission's discretion, they could say, oh, you're doing great, here's up to 5%. That's the gist, that's the.
Right.
Okay, that
And,
sounds
I mean,
good.
we can work out the performance plan and the details of that,
Right,
at some
right.
point in the future.
Person you hire.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, I had small things that are going to seem so easy after this.
We'll be the judge of that.
Mayor, is that okay, or?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Section 4, the termination of employment.
Page,
Page 5, Section 4, termination. I see a typo, very unimportant, but you have perquisites instead of prerequisites, I believe.
No, that's actually correct.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's not a typo. What is that word?
Laura in my office is the
Arcus
expert in
signs?
this. And perks,
Wow.
I'm gonna Google it right now.
I've never heard that word before. I'm excited to learn a new word.
You hear it shortened as perks.
Oh, I thought that was PERKS. But that's pretty cool. Anyways, all right, okay, so, but the main point of it was, there's, I believe in the last contract, after the first sentence that ends reason or for no reason, we had a part about by a vote of 3 commissioners, which I think is just a good, just to, in theory, if there's a quorum of 3, then 2 commissioners could vote out a town manager. I looked it up before.
Yeah, that was in here.
I think it's on the one for, with cause, or it's in another spot. Yes, it's under there for with cause, but it's not under there for without cause. And I saw in one of the,
It should be, I apologize for that. That should be in
I
both
don't think
places.
it's there. Okay.
And Glenn, one other quick thing while we're talking about that, I think there's a couple of places in here where we had she.
And I did the he, and I gotta go back and fix the he, she, and when it finally is done, I'll take out one or the other, depending on who you all select.
Okay, so,
I just had to look it up.
oh, yeah, I'm going to go home and look it up too.
Prerequisite is a thing regards a special right or privilege enjoyed as a result of one's position.
Okay. And then, again, two small things in the last, page 14, the post-termination name clearing meeting. I think these were things that we just fixed. We have put town attorney instead of city attorney, and I was just looking at the negotiations we had done the end of last year, and we had added,
What page are you on?
page 14I, it says city attorney, change it to town, and then it says within 10 calendar days of the date of termination, and such meeting will be scheduled to occur at a regular, and we had added in, or you had added in, or someone had added in, or special commission meeting, which I think, because don't we specify regular versus special, and that way it gives the opportunity to do either or special,
meeting,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And then the last sentence changed employee to manager. This is just how it was written before, and that was it. That's it.
Okay, good, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other specific comments?
I think it's good that we finally came to an agreement. Thank you, Mayor, for your good idea.
We've bludgeoned this enough to be satisfied? Okay, that brings us to, so there's nothing to vote on there. And I know we're all looking forward to the interviews on the 1st and the 2nd, and you said you would send out the schedule tomorrow on that?
Yes, the detailed schedule, yes.
Okay, and I think my recollection is that on the afternoon of the 1st would be the meet and greet. I think the meet and greet is like 5:30.
5:30 on the 1st, yes. We'll have some light refreshments here.
I know you guys wanted to do something earlier on the first, but I couldn't do it until after 3 PM. so.
I think you're supposed to tell Donna.
That's
yeah.
fine. I think everybody's fit in the schedule now as they wish, so,
Okay,
yeah, it's a full schedule.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Meet and greet, if we're all there and sunshine rules, we should just not talk to each other, or are we supposed to be there? Are we not supposed to be there? Give me the.
Well, we're
protocol
going
for that.
to, yeah, no, you can attend. It's
Okay.
open for everybody. We're going to send out a notice to the residents, so residents
Mm-hmm.
are invited to attend. We're going to have light refreshments planning for about 50 people
In this room,
in this room, yep.
tables cleared out, or how?
Yeah, we'll move the chairs around and, and get it set up, have the refreshments over here in the kitchen area, and so, yeah.
I mean, I figured
But they're typically a casual kind of event, and so just everybody gets to talk one-on-one, and just don't
I
talk
was just
to
trying, yeah,
everybody
well, if
anyway.
like there was one candidate and two commissioners were talking,
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
trying to follow the rules.
It'll be publicly noticed, right? They'll be
Yeah.
publicly noticed that there'll
Oh.
be this.
yeah, we'll notice it. April, we'll make a note of that, to notice the meet and greet meeting, so.
Okay, are there any, Mr. Hudson, any staff comments?
Yes, I called up on the screen, we have 2 commissioners out of town on the 14th of June, so we want to look at rescheduling the meeting for the 14th. So it looks like possibly the 21st would work as a Tuesday. And as I'm understanding it, the intention is to bring the manager's contract back to the commission for final approval. So that would be the date of that, so we would move this to the 21st, if that's acceptable.
Okay, I think that'll work fine.
Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to mention, I've given you an update before on the office buildings along, and we still have not heard back from either of the owners. We sent them actually the draft contract the 1st of April, so we're coming up on almost 2 months, so unless the commission has an objection, I think we better give them kind of like a deadline to get it to us by like the first week of June or something like that.
Have you
so.
called them? Sorry.
Yes, we've talked a few times, yeah. Yeah.
Has anybody reached out to Ike Crumpler?
Yep, I've spoken with Ike a couple of
Is he
times,
still
yeah.
involved in that process?
He is still involved, yeah, yeah. His comment to me is that they're doing due diligence, and so,
He's the one that came and represented them every.
right, right. Yeah, we've been, yeah, and the building on the end, 3601, is a condominium, so they're kind of working through. What the sense I get from them is they're prepared to come on board, but they need to work out a kind of a payment plan internally within the POA, so. But I do want to kind of like give them a deadline, because we have a deadline on the grant, so.
Okay, sounds good.
Did you have something to add, Lynn?
I was going to say, I don't think I can make the meeting on the 21st, but I will have someone here. Either Laura or Susan will be here. And that meeting will be solely to finalize the contract with the manager, correct?
Well, I think it'll be a regular meeting. That'll just be one item on it.
With the 21st?
June 21st. Because June 28th is your regular meeting where you're going to do the
Correct.
comprehensive plan.
Well, we only do regular meetings. Well, this would be a special because it's scheduled, so.
But is there going to be a fuller agenda then, or just?
We have other things we can put on, I mean, for
Okay.
sure, yeah.
That would be our first, essentially, the 21st would be our first regular meeting of the month, so.
Yeah,
I don't think we should have a regular meeting. The contract would certainly be on the agenda.
yeah, that would be on the agenda. I think the doc, the second phase of the doc, at least for a workshop, would be ready by the 21st, so.
Okay.
Okay.
When, remind me again about when the actual hiring will be?
The hiring of,
Yeah, the hiring of the new town manager.
I think Dan's answer would be as soon as possible.
well,
We're talking about the 21st, and I see the second being manager selection special meeting. When are the interviews again? I apologize, I should know this.
the first and second,
So those are the interviews?
Yeah.
yeah, and then
The night of the second or the third, the decision will be made?
Yeah, but the contract won't be.
the person you selected will be, unless you wish to
Well,
grant
but-
the
okay,
attorney.
but that's an eon until the 21st, so I would assume the 21st would be the first meeting where the new town manager will attend.
My understanding is if you pick Joe Smith on the 2nd, the 21st would be the day that or the next meeting, whenever that meeting is, will be the time that you actually approve the contract. Because what if there are changes, and then that person would probably give notice from wherever they are, because
Boy, you've given that person a long time to ice the pitch.
right, unless, right, and I know Dan's looked at we looked at schedules too to see if we could do it sooner, but I didn't think that,
Well, we're missing a commissioner for those 2 weeks, so, I mean, it's,
If Commissioner
I mean, we-
Fender would cancel his vacation, we could have the meeting earlier.
I am happy to be a virtual person in a metaverse anytime.
you can always zoom in.
Yeah.
Any commissioner could always zoom, as long as there's 3 here in person.
so I.
I don't know if
my
you want to do
underst-
that, but.
So just to be clear, my understanding is the intent is to finalize the contract on the 21st.
To approve the contract on the 21st.
Yeah.
I mean, can't we do
Yeah.
that? I mean, do we have to have a formal meeting? And, I mean, I would assume that your contract finalization process is like the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and through the 8th or so, I mean, I would assume that the decision
You
is
could-
made by the 8th.
I mean,
We could.
I'm not the negotiator, so I mean,
Not necessarily have.
Well, I think, sorry.
I think, I will say on Mercer's behalf, I think it's been her kind of thought process all along, is let's close it up on the 2nd and be done,
Yeah,
so,
that's what I'm saying. We can do this on the 2nd for that.
yeah.
It's just vacation schedules, really. I mean, because you're right. If you could have a meeting on the 8th, that
I mean,
would
that's the way we
be,
did it last time. is
if
that-
we're all
Yeah,
going to be
and
here on the 8th, I'm not sure.
No.
I disagree with that. Let's go ahead with making the selection on the afternoon of the 2nd, at the 5:30 special meeting, and then give Mr. Torcivia the opportunity to put together the contract, get him to accept it, and then it comes back to us final. If we don't do it that way, it's going to look like we're.
All right, so let's play that through. That's fine. So you're saying that on the 21st, we're going to come back here, we're going to vote on the contract that was finalized?
Yep.
And then what happens?
And I'm assuming at that time, Glenn will have the information about when the individual will be able to start.
Right.
Yeah, the start date will be a part of the contract.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
So, all right, I got it. So,
Okay, was there any?
I mean, it might have been confusing. When I started actually before you approved. I trusted you, so.
So can you mind if I indulge just one more step? So you're gonna make a selection on the second, so theoretically, for better or for worse, you're gonna know.
We're gonna make it.
We're all gonna make a selection, including the person who gets selected. We'll know that they might be the person selected by the 3rd, and then they're gonna wait a long time, and we're gonna finalize a contract on the 21st, and they won't be able to tell their current employer until the 21st that, hey, I'm thinking about leaving, I need to give you my 2 weeks' notice. So they can't actually even start July 1st, is what I'm trying to get to. When might this new person start in this beautiful world we just created?
You know, I talked to Don a little bit today, and there's a little bit of a variation. Some of them can start immediately. They don't have to give notice anyplace.
Okay.
Some of them have, well, one person had to give like a 30-day notice.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of variation there, but yeah, I think that, I don't know if it was me, I would certainly want to make sure that the commission accepted the contract before I gave notice.
Okay, so, just so I understand, so our theory is that that person will have a good sense of whether they're going to accept our contract on the 22nd and whether they're going to walk away and give notice on the 22nd.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Can I ask a question? Let's say you put the contract together and you call us, let's say wherever Frank and I are and the rest of the commission on, let's say, the 5th. And at that time, you'll say, this is what the contract is. You'll email it to all the commissioners. Are you okay with this?
Yeah,
And can we do it that way, Glenn, to
You have to
simplify?
have a
that's what I'm
public,
saying, why do we have to wait till the 21st?
you have to have a public meeting. If it wasn't for, let's make believe there was no vacations involved here, then you could have a meeting on, say, June 8th.
Could we have a Zoom meeting?
3 of you must be in person, 2 of you can Zoom in.
Okay. I just.
The
we
problem,
just-
the problem with that is the visual's terrible. The visual's terrible. It looks like you're doing something behind the resident's back.
Well, President can join the Zoom meeting.
Well,
It's actually more, I'm not fighting for it, I'm just saying it's more efficient, but that's okay. And I don't, by the way, know where my internet is gonna be, so I couldn't tell you until the last minute anyway.
well, if you want to consider scheduling a meeting that week of June 6th, the 4 commissioners that are in town could meet, and Commissioner Kurzman could maybe join in telephonically or by Zoom.
Only if it's
I haven't asked what people's personal plans are on their vacation, so I don't know, so.
We're gone a lot in June. I like the schedule the way it is. I'm with the mayor, the 5 of us here in person. We had talked about, hopefully having a unanimous vote. Not that but we haven't done a virtual meeting in a long time, and they certainly had their hiccups. And I'm not saying Tom isn't excellent, but I just think we don't want to.
Let's just keep it the 21st then instead of going back and forth. I think
That-
even
that's
our
lost a
attorney's
long
saying
time.
yes, so I
Craft
just,
a counteroffer to them.
yeah.
That happened in one day the other time, so obviously it can, well, it happened in one day before, so, or I think something like that happened in one day.
I'm good with the 21st then. If you're worried about the optics and stuff, I can understand that, I can appreciate it.
Dan, do you have any other staff comments?
I know we joke about me being here. I'm honored to serve the town.
Okay, any other commission comments?
Yes, if I may.
Absolutely.
About number 78, where the sale did not go through. Is there any update or anything on that, or?
No, I wanted to give it a day or two and, hear from commissioners, and then I'll contact Mrs. Riley and speak with her further and just see if there's any room. When I spoke with her attorney, he indicated that this was not a negotiating tactic, that she had in fact changed her mind, and so.
And I'm wondering if it would be appropriate at the next meeting that Joe could talk to us a little bit about our options, if that land is not available for sale.
Yeah,
I'm sure we can arrange that. Looks like he may have left, but I'm meeting with Joe tomorrow, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Joe on that subject, so.
That's really important, so we have everything in place. Now we don't have the main piece of land that we need.
Like I said, I think there's some options. I had a chance to chat with Joe yesterday, so, you brought up a really good point. It did take us an awful long time to do this, and I know that government doesn't work at the speed of light, but we probably could have done a much better job here of getting this done quicker. I mean, it might not have changed the outcome, but
It may have.
it may.
No, we'll never know.
We'll never know.
It went
Well, I
on
think it
a
would have,
while.
because 6 weeks ago, she was willing.
Yeah.
Bummer.
Okay, any other commission comments? If not, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion made.
We're adjourned, thank you.